Hey, welcome back. Now that I did part five, A New Beginning in this Friday the 13th franchise, I'm going to do the worst movie in the Friday the 13th franchise. I'm talking about the Paramount movies, 1 through 8, not the New Line stuff. There's some things to say about those movies as well, but we're sticking with the Paramount, the original 8 movies. That's right, Jason Takes Manhattan, the classic movie from 1988. Yes, this is a terrible movie review because this movie is terrible. And there's not much enjoyment in this movie, honestly. Sitting through it's painful, except for a few scenes that are pretty cool. As we know, coming off of part 7, by this point, the Friday the 13th franchise was diminishing returns big time. The box office numbers have gone down. Still profitable because they make them fairly cheap, usually between $2 and $5 million, usually the budget, so they make their money. But it was after part 7, Paramount really didn't know what to do with this movie. And I don't know if you remember in the 80s or later on in syndication, but for a few years there was a series called Friday the 13th, the series, where this old gentleman owned this antiquity store and he had these two younger people working for him, and they'd go out and hunt down these artifacts that were possessed by evil. And a gentleman a gentleman by the name of Rob Hedden, who used to write for MacGyver, which was one of my favorite shows of the 80s on ABC. And he wrote a couple episodes and directed for Friday the 13th, the series. So when they were trying to come up with, they didn't know who they were going to hire, they didn't have an idea. Paramount, he said, how about we put Jason in Manhattan? Take him out of Crystal Lake. And then obviously it sounds like a great idea to the studio because you're doing something different. You're taking him out of Crystal Lake finally after 8 movie. This is going to be the 8th movie. You're going to take him out and do something a little different with him. So if you ever seen an interview with Rob Hedden, his original ideas were he wanted to film Jason at Madison Square Garden. He wanted to film at Grand Central Station, Times Square. He wanted to do all the major places that people would know in New York City. Well, Paramount gave him $5 million, and that was not enough to shoot in New York City. As a matter of fact, he only shot in New York City for 2 days. And pretty much all that was done for shooting in Times Square and maybe a few other shots, and that's it. Any city shots that aren't those shots were shot in Vancouver. As a matter of fact, the rest of the movie was shot in Vancouver, even the stuff on the boat. So Paramount gave him $5 million, basically made him cut out a bunch of stuff from the script. And they went and shot this movie, and here we go. The movie opens up with these two kids who look more like their late 20s on a boat. They just graduated high school, I think, and they have the radio going on in the background, and they're this guy and this girl, and they start getting after it. And the boat's anchors in the water, and as we know at the end of Friday the 13th, Part 7, Jason got dragged under by Tina's father. She made her father come back and drag him under, and that was the end of the movie. Well, coincidentally, their anchor's right next to a power line, and it electrifies Jason and wakes him up. Well, okay, we'll go with that. It was, it's been done before. I mean, Jason was electrocuted in Part 6 and brought back to life, but okay, we'll go with it. Jason climbs on board and kills the two kids, takes the boat. On the radio they say about how the one class is taking a trip to New York City on a boat, on a cruise ship, which doesn't look like a cruise ship, but whatever, So Jason takes the boat and drives it across Crystal Lake and magically gets to the ocean. That's the first WTF moment of the movie. It's the 8th film that's never been established where Crystal Lake, you can get to the ocean from Crystal Lake. But, okay, for the sake of Jason getting to Manhattan, when I first saw it, I'm like, okay, I'll go with it. It's stupid as hell, but okay, we'll see where this goes, because we want to see Jason in the city. Jason shows up at the dock. All the kids are on the dock waiting to get on their ship. Jason pulls the boat up to that dock and climbs up the anchor chain to the ship. Kids get on the ship, and this is where we spend most of the movie on the ship. As if you've ever seen it, it's more like Jason takes a boat than Jason takes Manhattan. It was kind of like bait and switch almost. And then we get introduced to some of the most annoying characters out of all the Friday the 13th movies. And some of the lamest kills. And then we find out also while they're on the boat that Jason can teleport, apparently. Now, through all the movies, if somebody's running through the woods, Jason always managed to catch up. Somehow, some way. But teleportation was never established. In this movie, he could be chasing somebody down a couple decks. They run up and they're running away from him. He's nowhere to be seen. They get out on the deck of the boat, and all of a sudden he appears and kills them. I don't know where that came from, but yes, he can teleport in this movie, apparently. Yeah, the characters are terrible for the most part. The acting's, the script, everything's just bad. The direction's just TV movie-ish, pretty much. It's not very cinematic at all. I believed Rob hadn't seen. If you've seen an interview with him, now he disowns the movie and he's sorry for it. He seemed like he was excited about the possibility of doing it, and he tried his best. And nobody goes into a movie to make a crappy movie. It just happens sometimes, or if you don't have, maybe you're just not a good director. I don't know, but these things happen. When the ship catches on fire eventually, and there's only maybe 5 people left, and they hop on a lifeboat and paddle their way to New York City. Obviously, Jason follows. They get to New York City, and once they get in, and Jason chases them throughout the city, and they go into this diner, and this is kind of a fun part if you think about the trivia later on, Friday the 13th franchise. They go in this diner, Jason follows them, and this cook, played by Ken Kurtzinger, gets thrown by Jason and killed. Funny enough, that gentleman goes on to play Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, which I know a lot of people had a lot of problems with because they wanted Kane Hodder back. And it would have been cool to have Kane Hodder in that movie as well, but they picked this gentleman instead. He was a Canadian stuntman. But yeah, so the guy who played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason was in this movie, got killed by Jason, played by Kane Hodder. And the 2 coolest scenes in the whole movie, before I get to the biggest what the F moment of the whole movie, there's a kid on the boat in their class named Julius, and he's a boxer. And he's trying to get away from Jason. He's up on the rooftop of his building, and Jason appears. And he takes the fight to Jason. He starts boxing him, and he's knocking Jason back. But again, he tires himself out, and his hands are all banged up. They're bleeding. And he just says to Jason, "Take your best shot." And Jason grabs him by the shirt and punches him, and his head goes flying through the air, hits the open dumpster lid, goes in the dumpster, the lid closes, and that's the best kill of the whole movie right there. You can YouTube it. I'll save you the trouble. You don't have to watch the movie. You can YouTube it. They have that scene on YouTube, and you can watch it to your heart's content. It's the greatest kill in the movie, and it's probably the best part. The other great part of the movie, only the second, because the rest of the movie's not good, is when Jason's in Times Square. They show Jason in Times Square. It's a cool shot. It's a cool moment, and he has a cool moment with a bunch of thugs on the sidewalk, and that's the second coolest part, and the only 2 cool parts of the whole movie. So our biggest WTF moment takes place in the sewers. Our 2 people that are left, the one girl and one boy who like each other that are left, are in the sewers trying to get away from Jason. And they set up really quickly that at midnight, I think it's midnight, New York City floods the sewers with toxic waste. Yeah, I'm serious too. That's what they do in this movie. At midnight, New York City floods the sewers with toxic waste. Whatever, it sounded good when they wrote this shit. So they're trying to get away from Jason. They start climbing up this ladder, and Jason's right there, and then the toxic waste comes. It's Jason. And when they look down after it clears, Jason's regressed into a little boy. And he's laying there dead. Dumb shit, man. Dumb shit. Plus, before that, they threw a bucket of this stuff on him, and it melts his mask off. And the Jason design in this movie is awful. Besides the effects not looking that good to begin with, his makeup effect in this movie is terrible. Especially coming off of 7, where he looked really cool. This movie looks terrible. It's hard to even describe. It's just awful looking. And that's the movie. That's how they killed Jason, with toxic waste in the sewers in New York City. Yeah, this movie is terrible by all accounts. I've rewatched it over the years. I just recently rewatched it again. It's tough to get to. It's a chore because like I said, there's 2 cool moments: the Julius scene, the boxing scene with Julius, and the Times Square scene, and that's it. The rest of it's complete trash. It's not cheesy kind of fun. Like part 5, you can have some fun watching it. There's some cool kills, you know. This one, the kills are lifeless. They're dull, and just some really stupid things happen. And they're barely ever in New York. They're on the boat for 80% of the movie. Yeah, I'd give it a 2 out of 10. And the only reason I give it 2 out of 10 is for the boxing scene and the Times Square scene. That's it. The rest of it is completely forgettable and just awful. And funny enough, this movie grossed the least amount of money out of all the movies that Paramount had put out in the Friday the 13th franchise. It made $14 million and some change. And then after this, as we all know, they sold the rights to New Line, and they made Jason Goes to Hell, then they made Jason X, and then they finally got to make the movie they really wanted to make, which was Freddy vs. Jason. But yeah, this is definitely the worst movie in the Paramount versions of Friday the 13th. Yeah, 2 out of 10. There's not much else to say about this movie. If you've never seen it, save yourself the time. Go on Google. Or go on YouTube. Search for the boxing scene in Friday the 13th Part 8 and the Times Square scene, and you've seen the best parts of the movie. And there's no reason to even watch the rest of it. That's it for me. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.